I'm 96, don't forget. Almost.
Don't be too hard on you.
1929, I was married, and that was my last year of teaching.
And they closed the school that year too, didn't they?
And that's when it closed.
Why'd they close it?
Didn't need it anymore. They all carried the children on buses and went over to Reading Center. We were West Reading here.
Right.
And then on the ridge was the
Right.
Reading Ridge School. I came from Bethel to Reading every morning. I had to be at the train at 7:30. I'd get a ride with anybody who was going my way. Of course, there was a store at the railroad crossing down in West Reading. I used to get a ride when I'd come down on the train with anybody that was peddling milk or whatever. And I'd get to the corner, and then I could walk up the hill to the school. But it was wonderful.
Did you ring a bell to
No.
start the school day?
Oh, yes, I had a
Had a bell to ring? And how many students did you have?
Well, maybe 14, 16, maybe, depended.
Somewhere in there.
Some people came and stayed part of the fall term because they had a place to come in Reading, and they'd go to the city for the winter.
How old were your students? Generally?
Well, it depended on what grade they were in. It was from
5 years
6,
old?
7, however they were. Of course, if it was 8th grade, they'd graduate that year, and I was there for 3 years. I had a lovely group of kids all the way through my 3 years. And they obeyed me pretty much, and they did it because they wanted to, I think. I always felt that way. I had one boy who would throw his arms around me every single time I got off the train.
Which boy?
Chester Pattison. But he had something was a little bit not right quite. But he was such a lovely boy. I mean, when he wanted to please everybody, and he was a...
Was he a student of yours?
Uh-huh. I had him in school. But he was... Everybody knew that he wasn't quite, even the kids themselves, and they looked after him too.
He was funny?
And one day they came and told me that Chester was on the ground and they couldn't get him up. And he'd fallen. And he wanted to get up, but he couldn't seem to. He had the fits once in a while. And he died naturally at home. And I think he got to be 20, something like that.
What subjects did you teach?
All of them. History and arithmetic, of course, and language, I guess that's what they called it.
What languages did you teach them?
Just English language, but that was the name of it.
So you didn't teach religion?
No, not religion, but you included it.
So on your first day, being a teacher. Do you remember your first day that you taught?
I should, though, shouldn't I?
Were you nervous?
I probably was.
Were you alone, though, the first day? You were the only teacher?
Here in Reading I was. One teacher for one school.
Sure.
There were other teachers in Reading.
In different schools.
Mm-hmm.
And you
We had 3 schools.
And you went to teacher school?
I went to Danbury Normal.
And it's Western Connecticut now, right?
Mm-hmm.
And did you go with a lot of other people, or were there only a few there?
Well, there
Was
were
it a
quite
big
a
school?
few. No, well, maybe 20 or so.
Okay.
16, 20.
Were they women or men?
No men in my group.
Now, the school was built in the 1700s. They never had electricity in the school while you were teaching there?
No.
Wow.
No, we had
How'd you-
lamps if we wanted more light. And there were quite a few windows all the way around the school.
Did you have like oil lamps?
Yes, so we managed.
When you were there in the winter, were the windows drafty? Did they let the cold in?
Not if Bill Ryder could do anything. He was good. He tightened up the windows and he did a lot of little things. I was there 3 years and always saw to it that I had some wood for my wood stove, and he was great. I didn't get married right away. We were friends, just friends.
I want to hear the story about how you met Bill.
Well, he went down by the school practically every day, and sometimes my husband, wasn't my husband then, would come along and give me a ride home to Bethel sometimes. And he finally invited me to go to Danbury to a movie, I think. They were good movies. We always had something at the drugstore afterward, and they used to have tables and chairs in the drugstore, so we'd sit at that and have something very good, tasty. Of course, as he got to know me more, we stayed out a little later every time, I suppose, so that we'd come in and have a good time.
And how did he ask you to marry him?
Well, he was a person that didn't speak out an awful lot. So I suppose it just, I don't remember the actual words. I might have if I've thought about it long enough, but
Did you go on honeymoon when you were married?
no. Well, I suppose so. I was married at my grandmother's in Massachusetts. So we were there over a weekend. My grandfather and grandmother stood up with me. And we were married in their front best room. And the minister came, and he had another minister with him because he knew the way to get to my grandmother's house. So I had 2 ministers, but he didn't really do anything, just would
For good measure.
look on. I had a very happy life with my father and mother, and Bill liked them both, and they liked him. They couldn't help but like him. I had a happy time before marriage, and then I got a very good man.
And so what was it like for you growing up in the teens, the 1900s?
Well, I had a younger sister, so as I'm watching her, and she had a mind of her own too, so it was a good thing. My father was Lou Williams. He was an engineer on the railroad, Danbury, Pittsfield.
And he drove the trains?
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
And he was a good engineer because I had so many people on the trains would speak about the way he stopped the train. He'd glide into the station, not one of those jerks. I remember his hitting an automobile with people in it. And he was coming down from Massachusetts, and it was a crossing, but not a big crossing, but so that the engine didn't have to do it. He slowed down because he saw them, but he didn't have it quickly enough in time. He felt very badly about that. Charles Ives. Well, he was a character, Charlie, but I never called him Charlie. He was Mr. Ives to me. And he was a person who wanted to be accepted with the children, I think. And he'd try all kinds of little things to be funny. And he usually were funny. But he was one of the best people I ever knew, Charlie Ives. He and his wife.
Were you friends with his wife?
Oh, yes. She was. But I never called her anything but Mrs. Ives.
What was her name?
Harmony. He adored her. He was always out talking about Harmony. Harmony this and Harmony that. Well, you'd like her. Everybody loved Mrs. Ives. They adopted a daughter, and she grew up with Sylvia, my daughter. And Edie had grown up, and she was old enough to look after Sylvia. In fact, they were like our family. Wonderful people. Well, he wrote music. He has many pieces that he'd written about different things, and peculiar ones too. He didn't hesitate to make you laugh if he wanted to, or he'd be out there laughing up and jumping up and down. He couldn't sit still very long. I can see him sitting on the couch in his living room, and he'd stretch out, and then he'd get up and he'd have to walk around and lay himself down again. He was the person that was wound up, and then he was just as apt to pick up something and give it a whang across the room.
He was angry?
No, he that's the way he accepted lots of things. He wasn't mad. He was a very pleasant person. Only you had to get to know him.
Was he happy to receive the Pulitzer Prize, do you think, in the end?
Oh, I think he was overly. I know he was, but he wouldn't let you know it if you could help it. He didn't brag about it at all. He was very, very much quiet about it. And yet he could get up and storm around the room, and that was what he was letting steam off about it, I think. They didn't have any radios. He wouldn't have them.
And they came to your house to listen to the radio because they didn't have one?
Once in a while he'd come.
Why wouldn't he have a radio?
He didn't want a radio. He was one of the ones that wanted to live in the past, enjoyed what he had, and he had to accept a lot of things, and he'd fuss about it. maybe he'd clap his hands or do some silly thing, just to be Charlie Ives.
Do you remember when he came over and listened to the radio with Leonard Bernstein playing?
Mm-hmm.
And Charles didn't like it too much. So tell us about when he
Well,
came
he
over.
was sitting in the middle of the room, and I've got a long room. So he said, could he have a chair right here, right in the middle of the floor? So we put him in a good chair, and he sat there all by himself. And we were in the background on the couch. So after it was all over, he got up. And it seems to me he spit in the fireplace. I was going to say he spit in the chair, but I don't think it was that. And he never said a word. He stomped out of the room and into the dining room and back again in, and came back and sat down in the chair again. Never said a word, and no words are for us either. So he was listening to his own music, and it was an experience for us, a wonderful experience. And knowing him, you could understand it. I think he was tickled to death, but he wasn't about to let on that it was that good. You know, he was a piece of work, but he was one of the finest people I ever knew. That's so long ago, it's hard to remember.